the landlord and tenant board is backed up to hell. Like, in their best case scenario, there's no best case scenario. They're a mess. And it's actually a problem now, so much so that a lot of people are taking advantage of the situation because they know that A, it either won't go to the tenant board for at least a year, and that's if you're lucky, or B, they know that the people, whether that be the landlord or the tenant, don't want to deal with all this hassle and will just settle for, let's say, less than ideal situations. But there's something new coming along that could be beneficial to the landlord, and maybe not a problem if you are a tenant who pays on time, or a tenant who's in good standing, or even a tenant who's lucky and doesn't have a scary landlord. But some people are, and some people, well, there's a lot of ups and downs to this. There's a lot of ways this can be abused, and I can dive into this, but I think it would be better if we actually brought in a resident expert to speak about this. So I'm going to see if we have our friend, Devell Morrison with Bosley Real Estate Limited, to speak with me and maybe make me sound a little bit more educated. Devell, are you here?
I'm here. I'm ready to go.
All right, Devell. So I can go in about this new thing, but realistically, I think you can explain it better, and then I will for sure have some questions. So why don't you get us started here? What exactly is this new Auto-Evict video interview?
Well, here's the thing. It's not something that's necessarily coming, although I hope that there are politicians listening who are hearing about this. So there's a realtor. His name is Christopher Seep. He's with Aztec Realty. He's an agent in Ottawa, and he started this petition to ask the government to put in regulations to auto-evict tenants for non-payment of rent. And as you highlighted at the beginning, if tenants don't pay, it could take a landlord 5 months, 10 months, a year to get a hearing in order to get the tenant out. Meanwhile, they've had mortgage payments, or they've had maintenance fees, or property taxes, utilities, or bills that need to be paid that essentially even don't get recovered, even if they do make it to the landlord-tenant board. So just because a tenant stops paying rent doesn't mean the bank says, oh, no, you don't have to pay your mortgage. And so there are some, and we need to preface this by saying that not all tenants are bad and not all landlords are bad, right? You got 2% of the market that's making everybody else, that's giving everybody a bad name. And that goes on either side, whether it's landlords or tenants, right? So, we do need to have some protections in place for landlords, or people won't want to do it.
Well, and sorry, Devell, I just have a quick question. I just want to jump in fast here because like you said, if this petition was to go through, it essentially, if you didn't pay your rent, you would be auto-evicted. But is that, how quick are we talking? Are we talking the day after your rent's due, you didn't pay, this could happen? Are we talking if you're short a little bit of money, this could happen? Like, what exactly would the parameters be? Have that been decided or laid out at all yet?
No, that hasn't really been laid out at all. And so, it has to obviously be someone who's skipped rent, not just, short paid their rent. It's got to be somebody who's actually skipped out on their rent for a considerable amount of time. The petition, it's on change.org, and it already has about 26,000 signatures so far. I think it's just really getting the political will to actually do something about this. So back up for a second. We call them landlords, but technically they're really rental housing providers. And, when we say landlords, some people have a bad connotation in their minds as to what that is, versus if you viewed them as rental housing providers, which they are, and quite frankly, over the last 10 plus years, these people have been providing the bulk of rentals for people because the government has basically gotten out of the rental business. Now, they do need to get back into the rental business to create some affordable rentals, but you can't ask private investors to fix a problem that is a government problem.
I agree, and especially the fact that you have to give these private investors some ability, or at least some teeth, to be able to combat if there's a tenant who doesn't want to leave or anything. But my concern is, and I know this is an extreme example, like you said, but before we brought you on, we were just talking about a place that's offering a room with 2 shared bunk beds, and there's, it doesn't look like the best place to live. And we also just read a lot of places like this where landlords, and in this term, rental providers, and I'm not being facetious here, they don't treat their tenants well or will try to evict them very quickly. And obviously there are tenants on the wrong side, but my concern is here that a few bad actors will be given almost unilateral power to kick some people out of a building. Is there not a concern or back that tenants will kind of lose a big amount of, defense against this type of behavior?
I think the challenge is you've got some people who are gaming the system. right?
Yeah.
They know how hard it is to be evicted. And so because of that, they're gaming the system. They just don't pay their rent. And I think that that's a huge issue. Now, are there bad landlords out there? Sure. There was an article actually a couple months ago in Toronto Life about an extremely bad landlord. And, she's giving the rest of us bad names because we don't. And so I should have said off top, I am a rental housing provider myself. Most of us don't treat tenants that badly. I mean, to me, it's a karma thing. When a tenant comes into my place, I give them a bottle of Prosecco to say, welcome to your home.
Oh.
At Christmas, I give them, cookies or chocolates or something because you have to have this, karma and mutual respect, and you don't treat people like shit. But, I probably should have said that out loud.
No, that's all good. And that's also a perfect time for me to kind of jump in. I think you said it clearly. We just treat people better. Don't treat them like Dookie. But at that, Devel, we also do have to go. So I understand where you're coming from. This is something coming down the line. It's something we can look up. So if you're interested in this, please do look up the Auto-Evict petition. It may be something you're in power for. And honestly, we do need to do something with the system. So this may be a positive change. Devel Morrison, I want to thank you very much for sharing some time with me and making a little bit more sense of this and pulling me a little bit away from the fence on it.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Thank you for joining us. That was Devel Morrison with Bosley Real Estate Limited.